Whom of you was ever bothered while sending a text document, a simple text document, to somebody else because of file formats, because the other person couldn't read the file? Well, there's some, at least a fair number. So we know that file formats are important, that open file formats are important. Because if we want to exchange documents, we'll need them, or we all need to use the same software, but we don't want to. Or who always wants to rely on Microsoft Word? I don't hope that these are too many people. So this time we'll get Arjan came from the Netherlands to us to talk about the use of open file formats in governmental administration. And he was successful in changing the use of of document formats in administrations. So please welcome Arjan.
Thanks for that. Can everybody hear me? For the people in the back of the room, some of my texts contain more slides than what I normally do, so there are still more seats in the front. Come forward if you like. Some of the house rules, I'm not going to comment on them, you can all read. So those are in effect as of now. Okay, I've been doing open source lobbying, which basically involves talking to administrators and politicians for many years, and for many years that I was doing it, it was sort of, on my own time and stuff like that. And people kept asking me, Arjan, you're doing all this, great open source lobbying work, but you're not making any money of it. And then I would say, Dad, I'm trying. And so last year we founded a little company, which is called Gendo, which means a way of the source in Japanese. And so what we used to do as volunteers, we now do professionally. And this is the blurb. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Now, the M word will be used today, but it's not about them. They're a symptom. They're not the disease. They're not even the problem. They're just a symptom. But yeah, we all have run into them at some point in our lives, I guess. So everybody knows the examples, and that's what makes them useful. So this is my FR plan, 5-point. Most of it will be on point 3 and 4, but I want to do the why, because understanding why is, I think, important in the whole argumentation. Now this is, I think, an important why. This is a piece of text that you can find online. It's a British cabinet memo out of the summer of 2002. That's 9 months before the invasion of Iraq. And it says that the British intelligence people have been talking to the American intelligence people, and they're reporting back to the British government and says, well, basically we've decided to go, decision has been taken, we just need to sort of massage public opinion a little bit. And we're going to justify it by talking about terrorism and weapons of mass destruction. And of course, we all know that none there, but we're fixing the intelligence around the policy. So this was 9 months before the war. Now, you can look that up, it's great fun. But the important thing here is, how do we get hold of that document? Well, we didn't get it from, our government, which should tell us the stuff, but doesn't, or our TV or newspapers or anything like that, because it's new media that allows us to retrieve this kind of information and then share it and do things with it. And of course, new media, as some people still call it, mainly dinosaur people, is of course based mainly on free and open source software and open standards. And we call it the internet or the net or shorter like that. So this is one important thing, I think, to have open information and really transparent. We need that, and we need free and open source and open standards. So, hang on. Yeah, okay. So a computer is not about technology. A computer is not a better typewriter. It's not a technological issue. A computer is a better printing press. And so it's a free speech and civil liberties issue. Computers, operating systems, software, standards, information networks, all that stuff is like the printing press. And we should surround them with the same sort of checks and balances that we surround freedom of the press with. Because, of course, freedom of the press is not worth a hell of a lot if 1 or 2 companies own all the presses privately. That would be bad. We want the right to have to, we want to be able to choose between O'Reilly and this other guy. I mean, that's, you know, that's cool to have a choice. We don't want concentrations. So this is an example of a bit of a problem with the software license. If you use a certain software package, then this is in the license. And so the guy selling you the typewriter is saying you can't use the typewriter to type letters that say nasty things about me, which is kind of, you know, if there was a sticker on a typewriter or on a pen that says you can't say a nasty thing about the Parker Corporation, I don't think you would buy the pen, but many people use this kind of software. So there are many other reasons for wanting free and open source software and open standards, especially in government. These are some of the reasons. We want to, you know, everybody needs to be able to access all the data. It needs to be transparent how the information processes work. We want our national states to be independent of commercial corporations, of course. We want digital data to be accessible 50 or 100 years from now. National sovereignty, if you are the Chinese Ministry of Defense, you do not want to run all your computers on Windows. I mean, that's strategically not very clever. So there are many, many reasons, and everybody should just basically choose the one you like and talk about them. Okay. So how did I get started in this? Well, I live there, in the Netherlands, and the Netherlands has the lowest Firefox adoption of all of Europe. I regret to say, I hope it's going to change a bit now. And that's been true for quite some while. This is 6 months old data, so things might be a bit better now. And in the Netherlands for a long time, there were many sort of government places and banks and things that were online that you couldn't, you could only use Internet Explorer. You could not use Firefox or its predecessors. So on January 1st, 2002, I went to the Dutch railway site to plan a rail trip, as I often do. And instead of the planner, it showed me this. And it says in Dutch, you know, this site works with Internet Explorer. If you don't have Internet Explorer, go download Internet Explorer here. And of course, I was running Linux. So that kind of sucked. So I couldn't plan my train trip that day. And I was really pissed about that, because I'm a fairly good customer of the railway system. I give them a lot of money every year. So I decided to write a rather angry email to the webmaster of the National Railway. And having finished the mail, which had become quite long and well argued, I thought, well, I can send it to him, but then probably nothing's going to happen, because he's just a technical guy. He's not in charge of policy, so nothing will happen. So there was this gleaming CC field in my mail client, so I thought, aha! Okay, so I looked up all the IT specialists of all the political parties in the Netherlands and put them in, and the ombudsman, and the Minister for Transport, and about 50 other people. And then it looked really nice, so I sent that off. And then in 17 days, the Dutch National Railway changed its site. They had it revamped, and then it was standards compliant. Now, that wasn't only because of my email, because they got mails from literally hundreds of people, but I think the CC list sort of, got their attention a bit. And I also got into contact with a member of parliament who mailed me back and said, hey, this is weird, and I've been hearing more stuff about this. What's the real problem, and let's talk about this. So I went to The Hague on my free day and started talking with them. And one talk became another talk and became another talk, and we started writing things down, and what's the real problem here? And he said, well, we're going to make this into I'm going to bring this to Parliament and see what we can do. And so on the 19th of November 2002, this was one day after the American Securities Exchange Commission published the profit margins that Microsoft has on Windows and Office, which is quite obscene, certainly at that time. It was like 90% or something like that, and that was in all the papers. And the next day, Mr. Vendrick, a member of parliament for the Green Party, put this motion into the parliament, and it was accepted unanimously, which is quite special for a Greens Party motion. That doesn't happen all that much. And the motion really says two things, and it's known for the second part, which is about open source, but the first part is just as important. It says the software market doesn't work as a market should, and there is vendor lock-in, and there are problems, and there are high cost of transition, and therefore the government needs to take action to correct that, to create a normal situation. And then it says one of the ways of doing this is by adopting open standards and open source software. So that was 2002. And that was basically for me the start. Now, a Green Party member doesn't get unanimous motion. So from then on, Kees and me, we were best buddies, and I could call him and he would call me back and all that kind of good stuff. And so I kept sort of feeding him data and helping him out in this dossier and making it bigger and better and more beautiful. And other members of parliament got on board from the Socialist Party and from the Labour Party and all left wing still, but we were getting somewhere and we were getting a bigger chunk of parliament basically to work with us on things. And so we were helping them, get positive press and score points and do things. And of course, depending on what party you're talking to, you have to sort of adapt your talk a little bit. So I'm going to show you a little bit of the Dutch political spectrum from left to right, more or less. I know these are old concepts, but it still works a little bit. So we have the Greens, we have the Socialist Party, Labour Party, Christian Democrats, which Searle is in the middle, the VVD, which is sort of comparable to the British Conservative, I guess, in a way. Then we have the LPF and the PVV, which I think is even more right, but that's my personal opinion. Now, there are all kinds of issues that you can say this is why it's important. So things like social inclusion, transparency, vendor neutrality, open markets, lower cost. Everybody likes lower cost. Lower cost is always good. But other things, other things you might get traction with left-wing parties and not with other parties. I think, but I've never tried it, that national security might be sort of more of a right-wing issue. I'm not sure. Local businesses is certainly something that the VVD latched onto. So there is something there for everybody if you sort of, look around a bit. So then, basically not much happened for a while, but then in 2004 the government really messed up, and that was great for us because we needed a good example, and they gave it to us. They tried to purchase 150 million euros worth of desktop software, and they didn't follow the EU procurement rules for buying stuff. Basically, if you buy anything over €250,000 as a government, you need to do, European tendering, blah, blah, blah. They didn't. They only talked to a single vendor. And so that was a kind of an oops thing, and Brussels started writing very angry letters and all that things. And the civil servant leaked the info on December 10th. We got a phone call, as we sometimes do. And of course, then, we called other people that we know and stuff like that. So the next day, news sites carried the story, and it was in like the IT press and also on Slashdot on December 12th. And of course, we were mailing our members of parliament. So on December 14th, the first questions were asked in parliament, and by December 17th, the contract was dead in the water. And that saved the Dutch taxpayer a ton of money. So that was good. But things got better and better. Then the government admits we have a problem. And of course, we all know, the first step in overcoming an addiction is admitting you have a problem. So this was, when they did it. So this was for us really the best part of the whole thing. It wasn't even about the 150 million. I mean, this was the best part, because now for the first time, we had a cabinet document saying, we are too dependent, this is a problem, and we're going to do something about it by using open source software and open standards. So then that really sort of gave it a little push. And of course, the words like vendor lock and monopolist are actually mentioned in the document. So that was all good. So this is sort of part of building a dossier, which is something you need to do, and it takes years generally to slowly build a series of cases where it's clearly shown that there is a problem and this is the direction of the solutions, and you need to document it, and you need to have basically other people saying it for you, so you won't have to say it yourself. So if you can get a cabinet minister, even by mistake, to say we have a problem and open source is the solution, and you need to get that, underline it, photocopy it, and it's part of your dossier, and you can use that for years. It's great. So that was all part of this software building. Now, meanwhile, we are doing local stuff. So this is the city of Groningen, where I was born, in the north of the Netherlands. They were going to do a 5-year enterprise contract also for their some of the desktop stuff and some of their other office stuff. And we were called by one of the techie guys there, and he said, tonight there's going to be a council meeting, and they're going to decide on buying all this new stuff for €1,005,000 or something. And you guys need to come here and explain to them that it's really a bad choice. So one of my co-founders of Gendo and me, we jumped in the car, we were calling our MPs in The Hague, telling them to call their local party, fellow party members in Groningen, tell them, we're in the car, we're coming, we need 25 minutes of your time to explain something, which is about a lot of money. And so they gave us some of their time, and we talked to various representatives of the various local parties there, and we said, well, why are you buying this stuff? And they said, well, it's a new version, we're upgrading, we're always doing that. And yeah, but why are you buying this stuff? Is there anything in the new word processor that you need to do a better job as a government? Are you going to type out a better building permit with this new word processor? Is there any description of anything, functionality that you need to do your job to do it? And he said, well, no. Well, we said, well, you have licenses already, it works. They will remain supported to 2011. Why not just not buy it? Why not just,